Hello, Fish Faithful. This is Marlins Daily on the Fan Arch Network. I am Kurt Semder, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about today on the show. So much coming out of last night's game and some stuff behind the scenes as well that we want to talk about. But let's jump right in with last night's game. The Marlins, I said they needed to show us something in this series. They didn't play poorly, but they didn't play well. And they lost 4-2 to the Red Sox last night. A game that the Marlins had every chance to add on runs and really step up and get something done in this game. And it just didn't happen. They just kept missing opportunity after opportunity. Sandy Alcantara kept them in the game, gave them exactly what they wanted. 7 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, over 100 pitches, the Sandy special, you know? And then the bullpen gave it all up. Josh Eknes with a wild pitch, allowing the tying run to score. And then in the 9th inning, we saw Pete Fairbanks come in, walk one batter, have to leave the game due to an injury, which we'll talk about in just a bit. And then the bullpen just couldn't get it done from there. They give up 2 runs in the 9th, and they go on to lose the game 4-2. But this was a game that the Marlins lost many times over before the 9th inning. We have to say that, you know, it was a very, very welcome surprise that Kyle Stowers was back in the lineup, back early from his hamstring injury, which is unusual, let's be honest. With most people, especially with hamstring injuries, they're out longer, not shorter. But he made it back in almost stunning time. And he got a double in his first at bat, added a walk. Great to have him back in the lineup. Great to have him back at first base. It kind of puts everybody back where they're supposed to be, or back in a comfortable spot in the lineup, back in a comfortable spot in the field. But even with Stowers back in the lineup, this offense struggled mightily, especially with runners in scoring position. They went 2 for 18 in this game with runners in scoring position. That's bad. I mean, that's just, there's no way to sugarcoat that. And you go through the game, and it was just time after time where the seeds were there for a big inning, and the Marlins just couldn't reel it in. They just couldn't get it done. Second inning, they get the bases loaded with nobody out, and they come away from it with just 1 run, and that 1 run comes courtesy of Otto Lopez and a sacrifice fly. Early on in the game, would love to get more than 1 run there and get out to a big lead. Later in the game, in the 7th, a chance for more offense. They had the bases loaded once again with just 1 out. This time, they did get a hit. One of those hits with runners in scoring position. Xavier Edwards drives in a run and, gets the Marlins right back where they need to be in this game, puts them ahead 2-1. But from there, an out and another one. Done. No more runs. So 2 situations with the bases loaded, 1 with no out, 1 with 1 out, and they come away with just 2 runs. The only 2 runs they scored in the game. And then in the 8th inning, they had the go-ahead run at third base with just 1 out, and couldn't get him in, couldn't bring him home. And those kind of missed opportunities cost the Marlins in this game, because when you're playing a team like Boston, who is playing as well as they have been and has shown the ability to execute late in games, especially in close games, you can't miss all those opportunities, and you can't miss that many of them in a game like this. So the Marlins put themselves in a bad spot, and it ended up costing them. And they lose this game 4-2. They are now just 2 games over 500. They fall another half game behind the Padres, who were off last night. So they're 4.5 games back of that last wild card spot right now. And the news coming out of the game just isn't great when we talk about what lies ahead and what's going to happen, because, Pete Fairbanks, as we mentioned, threw just 1-1 batter, walked a batter, and then had to immediately come out of the game. Turns out it is nerve irritation in his right hand. If you've heard this before, it's because you've heard this before. He had this exact same injury earlier in the season. He missed 2 weeks when he had this injury back at the end of April. And if you're doing the math at home, if he misses 2 weeks from this point forward, then they'll be lucky to get him back for the last 2 weeks of the season. And, losing a pitcher like Fairbanks a month or so ago, you might not have really been that concerned. He really wasn't pitching that well. You might have welcomed a change at the back end of the bullpen. But now, losing him is a big loss for this team, and losing him is a big loss for this bullpen. Because, first of all, you lose your closer. He had been pitching well. Yes, he blew a save recently this past weekend against the Nationals, a game that the Marlins ended up winning. But prior to that, he had really been good, and he had really improved himself. Now you're going to have to shuffle guys around in a bullpen that is already still trying to figure out all of their roles because they're constantly pitching in bullpen games that move everything around, and it seems like this management, the manager, the coaches, and the front office can't seem to figure out exactly what they want to do. They are taking it clearly game by game, and we'll get to that in just a bit too. But now the question becomes, as we sit here and try to figure out what this team's going to do, Pete Fairbanks is out, so who should take over as the new closer? Well, conventional wisdom, and what most people seem to be thinking, is that Calvin Fauché will be the one who takes over, at least in the short term. I'm going to tell you right now, the Marlins are not going to name a closer, more than likely. If you pay any attention to how this team operates, this has closer by committee written all over it. This has whatever the best matchup is on any given night written all over it. And truthfully, this has yet another just mess of analytic garbage ahead of it. Something else teasing ahead here in the program. If it was me, you gave me the decision, it's not a difficult decision at all. Michael Peterson becomes the closer, and we move on from there. And I use this, if I'm not using this to try to get to the playoffs, I'm at least using this to see if Peterson can be a closer and be someone I can use on my team going forward as the closer in that role. He has shown that he can get out both lefties and righties. He has an excellent repertoire that really can, in just one inning, he can really shut down opposing offenses. He can take down their strongest bats. Peterson would be my guy. I would leave Fauché in the 8th inning, have him set up and go to him, rather than moving everybody else up and messing around the chain. I would just move my best reliever, who I think this season, at least for me, has been Michael Peterson. I would move him into the closer role. I don't think they're going to do that. I think this team likes having him available for all sorts of matchups that they like at any point in the game. We have seen that this season where they just throw him into games in the 4th, 5th inning or in the 6th. When they need him late in the games, he's no longer available because they pitched him there. We've seen them use him correctly late in games in big spots. But this is a big loss for a team that, again, this bullpen, while it has pitched well over the last 2 weeks, has been trying to find exactly their identity and their roles. They've been a good unit, but everybody's kind of like, what do we do? Who's pitching where? And this is going to just shake that up even more. And you hope that Fairbanks is able to come back for the last 2 weeks of the season, and you hope that the Marlins are still in it when he gets back. So we'll see what happens as far as who the closer of this team is going to be, and trying to determine anyway who the next closer of this team is going to be. Putting the bullpen together, putting this team together, that falls really, on not necessarily your manager, and not even necessarily your team president or general manager. It really falls on your scouting department. They're the ones who, find these guys. They're the ones who go out there and, bring in players who perhaps have gone under the radar. Say what you want about the Marlins. They don't go out there and sign the big free agents, but they have been pretty good over the years in bringing in players who have overachieved or players who have surprised a lot of so-called experts and gone on to have excellent seasons, excellent careers, and have really made their mark here in South Florida. That is why the report that came out from The Athletic yesterday makes absolutely no sense. And you can see it below me right now. Sources telling The Athletic, Will Sam and Ken Rosenthal, that the Marlins are letting go, firing most of their pro scouts. Okay. The report goes on to say that the Marlins plan to use more of the video at their disposal for scouting, that they plan to lean more on the video and data that they bring in as far as making their determinations as far as the ball club is concerned. I mean, when I hear that, my immediate thought is basically they're going to be using AI. That's what's going to happen here. They're going to be using AI to determine who's good, who's bad, who should make the team, who they should sign, and who they shouldn't. I do think a lot of teams are leaning in this way. I know some other teams have made cuts to their scouting department and have leaned more on video and have leaned more on AI and that sort of thing. To cut most of your professional scouting department is a wild move. I don't even know where you begin to break this down. And I don't know if this is a Peter Bendix decision or a Gabe Kapler decision or it comes from ownership. Because you have to try to figure out why they did this. And again, we should point out the Marlins have not confirmed or denied that this has happened. But again, this has been widely reported and originally came out in The Athletic yesterday. Two potential things here. One is, again, something that kind of looms over everything that everyone's doing in baseball right now, and that is the potential of a lockout next season. And is it possible that the Marlins, a team that is known for cutting costs, a team that is known for not wanting to spend a lot of money, and a team that has been known for, cutting corners where they had to, are they cutting costs ahead of the potential lockout? Are they making some cuts where they can, knowing that perhaps if there is a lockout, there's not going to be any money coming in, but also if that lockout gets resolved and the Marlins have to spend money on players to get to a floor, do they need to make cuts elsewhere? And is this where they're deciding to do it? Could be. And if that's the case, then that doesn't sound like a Peter Bendix decision. That sounds like an ownership decision to me. That sounds like it came down from above and they basically are just going to have to deal with it. And if that's what ended up happening, I could see them not really arguing or fighting it, because this has been a front office that we have seen it and we have talked about it, that has relied entirely too much on data and analytics. Things that are supposed to be tools that you use to help you, to assist, as something that you work in conjunction with the human element, your managers, your scouts. To rely on it completely, it's dangerous. I don't mean dangerous in a, Terminator Skynet sort of way. If you don't get that reference, I'm sorry, but you should. But my point is, it doesn't feel like the way to run a baseball team. It doesn't feel like the way to run an organization. The other point being that if this didn't come from ownership, I could also see that, because this, as I mentioned, this front office has been looking for any way, shape, or form to basically rely solely on analytics and data and numbers, and basically like they're living Moneyball, but not doing it as successfully. And I feel like one of the, older scouts in the room, with Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill in the movie, who are sitting there basically saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You need, that human element, that human touch when we talk about scouting, when we talk about baseball players, what they're going to do, how they're going to react. The numbers don't tell you that. They're right. You do need some of that. The two can work together. I don't think you need to rely solely on one or the other. On the other side of things, I feel bad for those scouts. Because, again, I think Marlins scouting has been really good for the most part. They have managed to put together a team on a shoestring budget that we have been talking about now for weeks on end as being in a wild card playoff race. And those people will most likely find themselves in other organizations rather quickly, I would think. But this move doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like most things that Peter Bendix has done, like most things that this ownership has done, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And this might be the last straw as far as where this organization goes moving forward. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the computers know exactly what's going to happen and what's going to happen next. In which case, can the computers do me a favor? If that's what's happening, can the computers tell me who's pitching tonight? I'm sure by the time this show, you're watching this or listening to this, the Marlins have finally announced a starting pitcher because right now, or an opener, because right now our favorite pitcher, TBD, is going to be taking the mound. TBD on the mound tonight, as the Marlins will take on the Red Sox and take on Peyton Tolley, a actual pitcher, a good pitcher, a left-handed pitcher, and somebody who I figure is going to give the Marlins fits tonight. Miami, once again, we mentioned this on Monday, they are looking down the barrel of 2 straight bullpen games here. A bullpen that, by the way, we mentioned just lost their closer. A bullpen that they just cut John King. A bullpen that has thrown a lot of innings as of late. And they're going to be asked to do it again here, it seems like, because for some reason Tyler Phillips isn't going to pitch 5 innings out of the gate. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he's been named the starter. Maybe he's been named the opener. I don't know. But for now, as I sit here, TBD is taking the mound, and I don't like their chances. Ryan Gusto supposed to take the mound in the second bullpen game of this series. Better option, but he's not. Got to wait a day. So let's see what the Marlins are able to do here. Got to just hit better with runners in scoring position. They get that done, they got half a chance. But it's a tall task tonight. And we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully this team is not looking down at a possible sweep after tonight. But we'll see. Hopefully it's a better result. And we will chat more. Loaded show today. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and comment as always. And we'll be here tomorrow. Hopefully we'll talk about whoever it was who took the mound and pitched for the Marlins against the Red Sox. Take care, everybody. See you tomorrow.